All right, we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to the new episode of the show. Today, my guest is Georgeo Xavier Pulikkathara. He is let me go up your LinkedIn, a Chief Information Security Officer at GXP Security, a U.S. Army veteran. Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
um, PhD in cybersecurity, doctoral student, and a lot of other stuff. But I'll let you introduce yourself and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny. I think we kind of covered most of it. The big thing, though, is I'm dedicated to protecting data security and privacy for organizations and for their consumers, right? So I got into this business sometime in 2003. I've been in IT and cybersecurity for about 34 years altogether. I joined the Army in 1987, but I started working in IT in 1991, and I've just been learning and moving along and learning new things and going from there. And the technology that we work with today just kind of keeps evolving. But for me, it's like a hobby. It's a job that it's not really a job for me. It's a hobby. Like when I got into IT, making things work. I do stuff like this where I can solve the Rubik's cube. Then I went from there to in 2003 when I started seeing a lot of malware and viruses hit. Suddenly, it became about how do you deploy technology securely. And my whole mindset just flipped. It's like a switch went on in my head saying, how do I protect data security and privacy? Today, the threat landscape just constantly keeps evolving. We're seeing some crazy things happening. But for me, that's what drives me every day is how do I better protect an organization? As a CISO that works, by the way, GXP Security is my own company. But what happens normally for me is people call me out of the blue and they'll say, hey, you did a good job for this company over here. They recommend reach out to you. We had a breach. Can you help me? So I normally come in and provide CISO advisory services when something bad has happened to help gather their forces and pull them together. Sometimes it's nice to have a good, like an extra experienced person to help them look at the right things and make sure the right things are happening. As easy as it sounds, it's not always easy to make a decision in the time of a crisis. So having a plan is crucial. Having experienced personnel who've gone through tabletop exercises, rehearsals is crucial. And I'd like to tell you, everybody does it. I think everybody knows what they should do, but when bad things happen, they're not prepared. So they'll call me. I'll come in. I'll help out where I can. Sometimes they have a CISO, sometimes they don't, and we just go from there. But I'm enjoying the work. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in our world today. It's only going to get worse. And when people ask me, should I be a CISO? I tell them, absolutely. Come on in. Right? There's an urban myth that there's too many CISOs, not enough work to go around. There's not enough cool work to go around where you're sitting behind a desk with like 1,000 directs and you don't do anything. That's not what I do. I actually get my hands dirty and I go in there and figure things out. If I don't know what the correct answer is, I'll go find it. But bottom line is I help the client get through what needs to happen and make sure they're taken care of. But most importantly, their customers are also taken care of, right? So if I'm helping a bank, it's going to be the bank's customers. If I'm helping like a collections agency, it'll be their customers, and so forth.
Thank you for the intro. Um, you've been serving in the U.S. Army for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
And is it something that you've been also doing as part of your military career in this space?
So I started out. So first of all, I'm a naturalized U.S. citizen. I came over in June of 1976, and when we came over, my mom and dad came over here first, and then they brought me and my brother over. I think my sister came with my parents initially, and we came over. We went to school like most immigrants, and kind of just did our own thing, and stayed within our communities. My older brother, my mom wanted him to be a doctor, and I was the second son. She said, "You need to go be a priest." And I said, "Okay, well, okay." And then as I got older, I realized, no, I don't think I'm going to be a priest. I think I like girls a little bit too much. Maybe I'm not going to be a priest. So she asked me, "What do you want to go do?" I said, "Well, I want to work in IT." And she goes, "What's that?" And I go, "Well," and I showed her something called VisiCal at the time, right? It was a spreadsheet. It was a book that I told her about and how it works. I didn't actually have a computer, but I tried to explain it to her. And she looked at it and goes, "Is this like typewriter repair?" And I said, "No, it's not typewriter repair. I can type on a typewriter, but it's software." And the concept wasn't that that well understood at the time, right? It was software running on hardware. But she looked at me and said, "You're not going to find a job, and nobody's going to marry you." I said, "Oh, great, thanks." Fast forward, I joined the army, and I joined the army not because I had some noble reason. I joined the army because at the time I wanted to go to college. They had something called the GI Bill, and helped pay for my college when I was living in Houston, Texas. And I got my degree in banking and finance. At the same time, I went through basic training in AIT, and probably one of the best things for me because it gave me some discipline I didn't really have and helped me to study harder, helped me to focus better, helped me to have more self confidence in us on what I can do. We did all kinds of crazy stuff in the army, going through basic training, obstacle courses, rope climbing, uh, uh, marksmanship practice with your M16 at the time. So now they're using M4s. I think they're about to get the new M5s or M7s right now anyway. But my point being is that it gave me the self confidence I needed to move forward. I graduated with a degree from the University of Houston, banking and finance. I got commissioned ROTC. I actually wanted to go into office automation, which resided in the finance branch. But I boxed with those guys in college, got a scholarship for that. And they said, "You're going to go infantry." I said, "Wait, what?" And I kind of went from there. So I didn't start out in cyber. I'm right now today. I'm a cyber operations officer. But I got to tell you, it made sense to me after I went through. And there was a term that was used back then, which was called "These are my people." And I looked around in the infantry guys, and I realized these are my people. Right? We were shooting 50 cals. We were doing carrying heavy machine guns and going for like a 10-mile ruck march with a 55-pound ruck. I enjoyed it. It was the craziest time of my life, and I loved it. I came out, finished that, and I went to work at AIG and went to Wall Street. But the Army gave me a mentality what is to be not just a soldier, but also an Army officer. A whole persona came about for me, right? And making sure that if something bad is happening around me, I take charge. If nobody's in charge, I take charge. And you'll see a lot of this in how I deal with security issues. But nobody's in charge of the security situation, I'll take charge and make sure the right things happen. I also learned a lot of stuff through mentoring. Know what right looks like. Do that. Don't just do whatever the crowd is doing. Just know what right looks like and go after that. Lead by example. I'm responsible for the actions of myself and those around me. So if you see something bad happening around you, you know it's not the right thing. You got to get engaged and say, "Hey, we're going to do the right thing here." That's been a lot of my mantra for the last my goodness 34 years. If you were to ask me who I am, I'd say I'm a Texan. I'd say I'm a chief information security officer, and I'm an Army officer. Which, by the way, I think in about maybe 3 years I'll be done with my time in the Army, and I'll probably be out by then.
Mm. Nice, nice. Well, I love it. Um, yeah, so as you said, your military career shaped your mentality and how you approach your business as well.
Yeah.
Um, so you seem to have a very positive outlook on the military. Would you say that young people should consider joining the military too to obtain the same set of skills as you did in the past? Would you recommend that?
I would recommend it. I would make sure that whatever they promise you, you make sure it's in writing. So when I joined, like I said, I was the kid that could solve the Rubik's cube. I was in shape. I played football. I ran cross country. I swam. I was in pretty good shape. But they promised me, and I told them, "Hey, I want to go into engineering." In my mind, I'm thinking, DEC PDP-11 mainframes. I'm thinking AS400s. I'm thinking all the, technology wise, right? And they said engineering. Got it. And I found myself after I get going into an what's called 51 Bravo carpenter and masonry specialist. Right? And I also got a little bit of 12 Bravo for I think like a week or so of combat engineering. At first, I was like, "What the heck is this? This is not software engineering." After I finished basic and AIT, I go, "What the hell?" Because it was AIT. And I said, "Excuse me, I think I'm supposed to be in the mainframe class. Where's the mainframe class?" They said, "Shut up, kid. Keep building that house frame." It was actually good work. So I learned all about how to frame a shed or frame a house, how to use concrete nails, 2x4s, spacing of the studs in the walls and all that, how to pour concrete, dig ditches. It was good, honest work. not exactly what I had in mind, right? Again, I wanted to go into engineering. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to go get into shape, honestly, it's good advice anyway, right? But back then, a lot of us were just always in shape. We bicycled everywhere. Like, and today, kids play a lot inside on computer games and all. But back then, we drive around on our BMX bikes all across the neighborhood. We'd stop at a neighbor's house and drink water out of the garden hose, uh, climb ropes. My brother and I would constantly make a rope and climb on the top of a roof and climb back down again, right? Uh, didn't think nothing about running 5 miles in tennis shoes and blue jeans. We just did it, right? It was just the way we were. We're always in shape. But if you're going to go in the military, you got to be in shape, and you got to make sure you're ready for that. The other thing it taught me was discipline. Um, it's been said to me a few times, and first person to tell me this was actually my drill sergeant. Then it was my platoon leader, and you got 24 hours in a day. You can't sleep the whole day, right? You're never going to get time back. So you got to figure out what you're going to go do with that time. You got to figure out how you're going to spend it. It's okay to have fun, but understand that it's 24 hours. You're going to sleep 8 and leave 16. What are you going to do with that 16? You got to work 8, right? Unless you're rich. Now, you could do really exciting work, or you could do really tedious, very manual labor, whatever makes you exciting. But for me, I want to spend that time doing IT work. I enjoy building servers. I enjoy building networks, making cables. To me, that was just the greatest thing I could ever go do. And I just got to learn from there. But you want to make sure you have a plan for what you're going to do every 3 years moving forward. And the military taught me all about getting things done and having a plan for what I'm going to go do, right? Nothing crazy like a 5-year plan, just 3 years. Hey, what are you going to do next year? What are you going to do this year, right? Are you going back to school after you finish your bachelor's degree? And I made a plan, got my MBA. I went to work on Wall Street for a couple of years, went back, and I enjoyed it. But I would recommend to kids to go look at the military, but understand what you're getting into, right? There is a lot of discipline. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of mentoring. What that means is some folks who had more experience than me took me under their wing and said, "Hey, George, this is what right looks like. This is what you need to go do." Um, Silly stuff, but I don't go outside in flip flops and baggy shorts. Right? If I step outside, I'm in a button down shirt. I got a blazer on. I got slacks. I got a belt. I got a haircut. Uh, People will treat you based on how you dress and act. And if you want to get respect, you got to respect others. But at the same time, being properly dressed is a way of saying I'm not some bum. I'm actually a working guy just like you, and people will treat you that way. Be polite, dress well. You don't have to dress great. I'm not saying go dress in Giorgio Armani. I'm just saying, just dress well. Be properly groomed. Take a bath, shower, things like that, and people will treat you well. But the military taught me to always be properly dressed in uniform, showered, shaved. It's what we call military bearing. So it's carried me a long ways, and I would encourage people to go look at men and women. Um, there's different things you can do there, and there's also different opportunities. Not all of them were for me. Um, as I mentioned, I like IT, but if you were if you want to go be a doctor, and you had the grades for it, and you were about to go into medical school, the military will actually pay for your medical school, let you finish, and then you go do maybe 4 or 6 years as a captain. You get a direct commission as a captain, and go be a doctor in the military. It's a great training area to go figure out how to be a doctor and refine your skills. But there's lots of opportunities. But I said the biggest thing for me was the self confidence, then the right to know what right looks like, and also just the discipline I built across my life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Discipline seems to be the main takeaway, like for you from the military,
Yeah.
and yeah, that you embraced in every aspect of your life. Um, nice. I remembered you mentioned um when we were just started the episode. You said that the cybersecurity landscape it's gonna get more um you said it's gonna get worse, like in terms of like the threats.
Going to keep
um
evolving. Yeah.
yeah, could
So
you expand on that, please?
absolutely. So one of the things that you're going to find here in the United States, and this is probably true for you, and it's true for the United States. I cannot say for other countries, but if you come up with an idea, you get to keep that idea, right? You get to make money with it. You get to patent that idea. and go from there. Networking, IT, technology all started here. I mean, people can argue that they have it now in other countries as well. That's true. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying that some of the true innovation started here. With that being said, um, I think the United States government at some point figured out that the information, the way we do business, was actually at risk. What that means is that other countries wanted to know how our technology worked. We developed solar panels a long time ago. Now they're made in almost every country out there. But the key thing about the threat landscape is that everybody wants to steal our information. They want to steal our patents. They want to steal our data. So we got to get better at better protecting it. So as a cyber operations officer, I protect what's called critical infrastructure for the U.S. government, right? Everything from power plant to intelligence centers to power grids, water supplies, all of that. And you got to think about what we can do to make sure that it stays properly protected. If the power grid goes down, people can die. And there are actually quite a few what they call cyber attacks against our critical infrastructure on an ongoing basis. The U.S. military, not just the Army, but Army, Navy, Air Force, all have what they call cyber protection teams, CPTs. I was actually a CPT team leader for a while. Then I became a cyber battalion commander, where I led two CPT teams. And we led readiness efforts to get everybody trained up so they can actually help protect that data security and privacy. Critical infrastructure really is the big thing. But that landscape is always in threat today. Today, I wouldn't say it's a Cold War, but country, China is a good example. They're constantly trying to push TikTok over here. Look, social media is fun, but uh, TikTok is actually banned for the military right now in the United States because of the fact that it's almost like what they call like a wife. It's actually like this piece of software that's very vulnerable, and you can just uh, uh, look at it and find all the vulnerabilities in there, right? So they've said don't use TikTok anymore for going forward. But my reason for bringing up TikTok is that it's full of vulnerabilities. It's software designed to steal people's private data. Where are they going? What are they doing? This is constantly being watched. This is constantly, even though the TikTok USA group has said all the data stays here. They've have proven records from the U.S. government that's shown that this data is flown over to the United States, to China, being analyzed, looking at who's using it and so forth. So it's being banned. But the threat landscape here, our personal information is at risk. I actually don't use Facebook. I do use LinkedIn only because it's so clients can find me and I can go talk to them. But it's very important to understand that as you use software, as you use technology, make sure you're adequately protected, right? Make sure you got virus protection on your laptops. Make sure you have virus protection on your phones. Make sure you understand who you're talking to, what information you're sharing. When you load certain software, if it's free, there's a good chance that there may be issues with it. So just be careful with it. But yeah, the threat landscape here in the U.S., within cybersecurity at least, is constantly evolving and expanding. And what they're after is your data. Now, some of the data is protected through things like, for example, we call it AES 256. It's the highest level of encryption you can have right now. But the Chinese, the Russians, the Americans, actually the whole world is working on what they call quantum resistant encryption. So at some point, quantum computing is going to break our current encryption. When it does, they'll be able to decrypt everything that we've encrypted, with these encryption keys. So the hope is to be able to grab our data and encrypt it with quantum resistant computing before that happens. But in the meantime, anything they've stolen, they'll probably be able to go break into that and see what it says, right? It's a reality. So we got to get better basically at protecting our data. The government has gotten much better at protecting their government networks, the civilian networks like the Department of State, the civilian workers, so forth. But there's a lot more work to be done. I would say maybe like 10, 20 years ago, data network was more like Swiss cheese. Anybody can get into it. Any foreign network can get into it. Since then, they've taken a lot of steps to lock it down, look at classifications, making sure people got the proper security clearances. And the reality is that to be able to go protect data security and privacy, our citizens and our military have to be ready, right? Training, going to school, certifications are good, but at the end of the day, understanding how the data is stolen, what's valuable, and why they're doing that. Um, anybody can, I call them script kiddies. Anybody can actually be a hacker, but to go play defense, it's a lot of work, right? It's not as fun, not as sexy. But you're out there constantly running vulnerability scans. You've got a SIM running. SIM is a security information event management system. Look trying to detect threats. You're doing code scans. You're running stuff on the firewall to see if anything coming through the firewall constantly. But that's work that an IT security team will definitely have to do on an ongoing basis to make sure we're protecting data with reasonable efforts, right? But this is ongoing. I mean, there's been quite a few attacks in the last few years. That's just been crazy. SolarWinds comes to mind. SolarWinds was a piece of software that used performance management on a lot of government systems. It was reasonably priced, very affordable, and people were able to basically push patches through it that turned it into basically a monitoring system for attackers. And they're able to monitor U.S. government systems, including the White House, the military. And as soon as we heard about it, all we could do was go through data centers, unplugging at the time, making sure they were shut down in a quick manner. But yeah, there's quite a bit of a threat, and we need more people in the cyberspace. It's funny because if you look on LinkedIn places, uh, you would think that there's not enough jobs because the second the job pops up, 1,000 people apply for it, right? I don't necessarily know if they're qualified, so I don't get put off by it. I just go take my time and apply for it anyway. But um, we definitely need a bit more cybersecurity professionals in the civilian industry as well as in the military, and pick any armed forces that they're going to need them there.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of great insights, and what you're talking about is on the geopolitical and strategic level, but also when let's say war breaks out and there is actual battlefield, and at that point of time cybersecurity becomes even more important
Oh my
because
goodness, yeah. Remember the Ukraine invasion of Ukraine by Russia? So the CISA org, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, they pushed out updates to all the private sector organizations saying, "Hey, there's an impending invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and with that invasion, you're going to see a tsunami of uh, malware, right? Malicious malware that is designed to uh, uh, collapse the partition on your hard drive, infect with malicious software, propagate ransomware, things like that, right? Encryption, remote access trojans, things like that." And at first, we looked at it and said, "Holy crap, let's go check our firewalls, and make sure everything's good to go." And we saw a massive amount of malware coming across, hitting our firewalls. We were able to block most of it. Some of the stuff did get through, but we were able to get the machines quarantined, cleaned, and up and running again. Yeah, but Army cyber operation is a uh, big part of a warfare today, right? So you got people on the ground doing direct kinetic action. At the same time, you've got cyber. Today, there's actually cyber teams that move with ground forces. So if they need to take out a helicopter, they need to take out a tower, they need to take out the lights in a city, right? They can connect into it, take it out, and our forces can move through it quickly. So cyber forces today move with direct military action, or direct action as they call it. But yeah, it's going to constantly keep evolving what we do with it. But at the same time, um, there's things we think we can be ready for, but what we do in the private sector doesn't come close to what the military can do, right? The APTs from China and Russia are extremely well trained. So it's very important that we get the fundamentals done correctly in the private sector. The fundamentals to me are patching, vulnerability management, doing code scans, doing vulnerability scans on your system and platform, using WSUS from the Windows side to make sure your systems are properly patched and updated as quick as possible, right? 0-day vulnerability. As soon as you hear about it, deploy that patch. Don't wait. Right. Prioritizing the fundamentals will be very, very important. Um, don't try to run your security team with a one-man show that has to work 24 hours a day. Have people that can at least work 12-hour shifts. Have a managed security service provider that can help you cover off hours in case something bad happens. Uh, this is a real space that we're in right now, and understanding risk management is the first thing they need to go do. So if you're in the space, if you're a business and you're operating in a threat landscape where you know your competitors are being attacked. I was the chief information security officer at Dublin from 2023 to 2024, and after I got hired, I got a chance to meet with the board, and they asked me, "What do you think is the top risk?" And they felt the top risk was regulatory compliance, and I told them everything I'm hearing right now, ransomware is coming our way. Which they laughed. They said, "We have not been hit with ransomware yet, and we don't think we ever will be because it's just not really happening." And then that was April. Sure enough, in May, it started hitting our competitors, right? And things started getting serious. So I wrote an incident response plan. We changed out the SIM. We put in place Azure Sentinel. We got we shrunk down the number of vendors so that we don't have any kind of gaps in our cybersecurity perimeter by shrinking down the number of vendors. We just picked a few key vendors to be able to tell us what's going on. Microsoft provided us tools like Purview data loss prevention. They provided us Purview insider threat management, Sentinel for security information event management, Defender for ATP for all of the endpoint for endpoint protection to make sure that we could see what's happening and get extra telemetry. So we started running monthly tabletop exercises and then quarterly drills with legal, CFO, COO, and others to make sure they knew what to happen in case of a breach happened. And it actually paid off when the ransomware did actually happen. So my point being is that you got to do the preparations ahead of time for this stuff. It's no joke. But to really get this to work right, if you're a private sector, you got to have a team. Cybersecurity is not a one-man show, right? You don't just hire a CISO and say, "Okay, CISO, go take care of it." You got to have the trained people. It's very much like an infantry platoon, right? You got your riflemen, you got the grenadiers, you got the RTO calling in fire support, you got squads, you got a couple of fire teams per squad, all doing what's supposed to go do. You got attack and support, right? These are all things that those terminology actually does work backwards into cyber. So they are constantly looking for what is the next most likely threat that they're going to bring to us, and how do we prepare for it. So if it's ransomware, if they encrypt our data, great. How do we dump that entire network? I kept saying burn to the ground would actually make my senior leadership very nervous. And then rehydrate our network with backup data, right, from backup tapes. How soon can we do that? We actually ran drills to go make sure we can do it. Got it down to about 2 hours. Or 2 hours, and bring the tape back. We'd run restores, and the quickest we've seen was a competitor who got hit and breached, and they were able to get up and running in 2 weeks. And 2023, there was a bunch of mortgage companies getting hit. It's not that they weren't doing the right thing. It's just that they were actually targeted, right? So there was actually strong intel saying that groups like Scattered Spider, Alpha V, Black Cat, being funded by Russia and possibly China on the dark web, was actually sponsoring these attacks against the mortgage industry. We need cyber personnel, right? The home ownership is an American dream. The American dream is freedom. Come to the U.S. Come legally, right? Just like you said, hey, I want to come to the U.S. I want to get the paperwork done, and I want to be able to buy a gun after I'm a citizen. That's the right approach. So everybody encourages that. No, don't think that anybody in the U.S. is saying don't come to the U.S. What they're saying is just come legally, sneak across the borders, and suddenly you're like, hey, I'm here. But come over here and help make it a better place to live. And I think most countries are that way too, but at least the U.S. is looking to go there. But we definitely need more cyber personnel just to protect everything. The big thing thereafter is our money system. A lot of attackers try to use our banking system to launder money. I don't know if you're familiar with the Banking Secrecy Act of 1970. It's specifically designed to be able to root out drug cartels, people trying to launder their money for illicit gains. It was meant to make sure that whoever is opening up an account is a real person, right? Because banks and healthcare are the two areas where they steal data. The data from healthcare is used to go create accounts. They sell that information on the dark web, so anybody can create a fake identity, right? They're going to go steal George Pulikkathara's data and say, I'll be George Pulikkathara. I got his driver's license. I've got his passport. I'm going to go fly around to the world and buy homes in George Pulikkathara's names, and he's going to get the bill, right? Can you imagine working your whole life? You got maybe a mortgage or two mortgages, maybe you're divorced and you're paying alimony, and now suddenly there's like a third mortgage popping up on your credit history. You got to pay for that too, right? And you got to prove that it wasn't you. And sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. But the stress that falls on somebody is just soul crushing, right? My point being is that uh, I take this stuff seriously, and I think it's work that matters, right? That's what I call it. It's work that matters. I think, look, doctors, lawyers, that's fantastic. I'm not saying don't go do that, but I go do a PhD in cybersecurity not because I want to. Sorry, that was my wife. She was just looking in on me. Like, who's he talking to? But I do this work. I think it's work that matters. I go do a PhD because I think that I can be a better CISO with that in mind. And I'm happy to actually fill in the gaps in my knowledge by going and taking classes on these things. So I'm enjoying it. At the same time, I also realize that threats still out there and it's constantly changing and evolving. A few years ago, it wasn't much, right? Before the days of high bandwidth internet, broadband, and all that, and high capacity storage, it was a modem. They had a 14K modem, maybe 9600 baud modem, 14K. 56K modem were really cool, right? Back in 1993 or 92. And you connect across the modem. Not a whole lot of data you can steal on a 56K modem, right? It just wasn't that fast, right? So the risk wasn't that great. But the second we started getting breakthroughs in broadband technology, broadband over cable TV lines, getting the hard disk getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? We went from 100 meg hard drive, 50 meg hard drives, 200 meg hard drives, to 1 gigabit hard drives. Like, oh my goodness, that was crazy, right? Uh, Now, with all the storage we have, people are just stealing the data, and they're basically stealing it and trying to decrypt it later, right? Steal now, decrypt it later, and it's a real thing because they know the government has some useful data. They can't get to it, but at some point, quantum will break it, and we're going to be in trouble. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I'm saying that I think this newest generation way smarter than I am. And I think we just get them focused and saying, look, I need your help in this space. Maybe they'll come join us, right? The military is not as bad as people think it is. Same time, I'm not trying to say it's the greatest thing ever. There's some dumb stuff that happens. Don't get me wrong. Uh, we need leaders, right? We need leaders. And I personally believe that the greatest thing we can do as soldiers is to be of service to our country and to each other. So when I go into a situation, when I go on a deployment, I take care of the soldier under my command, right? I make sure I'm looking out for my country and for my soldiers. So I try to make sure the right things happen, the right decisions are made, right? I try to make sure the right planning happens. So all that helps them go do their mission better. And at the end of that deployment, they have a sense of accomplishment and know that we did the right thing as we're leaving, right? I don't want them getting caught up in any kind of silly mess where they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. But again, the greatest thing we can do as soldiers is to be of service to our country and to each other, right? Serve with honor, serve with pride. Come on home. So
Thank you, sir, for your insights. And I want to say it's really inspiring to hear it from you because I am, as an immigrant, I love this country and I see myself in the US politics, but also potentially in the military. And I am also a software engineer. So what you're saying is very close to me. And I hope to also be an asset for this country in the future. And what you're saying is very inspiring.
Danny, I'd love to see you do that. There's a thing called the Army Software Factory that is just rocking everybody's expectation. Right? It's just amazing what they're coming out with. Have you ever heard of DARPA?
No.
DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. So, contrary to popular belief that Al Gore invented the internet, it was actually DARPA. He also invented Velcro. But my point is this is a research agency that thought of the internet in the early days of the 50s and 60s, 70s. And the idea was that if a nuclear bomb hit and took out a part of the country, the universities would have these networks that could connect and share information. So we wouldn't lose that collective knowledge that we've built up as a civilization, right? But the internet came from there. But today, DARPA is doing all kinds of amazing things. And if you're serious about being a software engineer, maybe coming to work for the Army, I would definitely talk to the Army Software Factory. I would talk to the CISA org. But most importantly, DARPA gives out scholarships for really smart folks to solve really tough problems, right? It's amazing what they're doing, and I don't have all, I don't have any visibility into it at all, but I keep hearing they're doing good things. But it's one of those agencies that, hey, if they built the internet, what are they working on now? That was back in the '70s, right? We're talking like 50 years ago. What are they doing now? Amazing stuff. I'll tell you that right now. But if you're a software developer, come work for those guys, right? But it's an exciting time to be alive right now with AI coming out and all these things that AI can go do. It's just amazing to watch it happen. At my time, when I started working in IT, I think I was all of 20, 21 or 22, and we had these network cards. You put in like a big box, and you had flips. You had to memorize it's called a dip switch, right? And each setting was based on memory, speed, things like that, right? And you had to have the settings set correctly. Today it's all BIOS and all auto configured, everything else like that. But back in the day, that wasn't the case. But today, the technology has grown by leaps and bounds. The software has grown by leaps and bounds. Python does amazing things. You got cool things like if you're a coder, if you do any kind of development. I'm a big fan of Code Editor. Uh, you know, there's not a reason to send your kids to code camp, right? When I was younger, it was summer camp. Now it's code camps and math camps, right? I mean, what a great place to be alive. Like, hey, you know, you could actually go to math camp. Think about that, right? So now people are like, oh, I don't want to do math. If you can figure out the hard math at an earlier age, you can actually skip ahead. When I was younger, I skipped math classes in high school to be able to get ahead, right? Because I went and took the class at the summertime. But then we call it summer classes. But I would take summer classes, mathematics, skip ahead. But my point is that today you could really, supercharge your kids' career trajectory by just getting them into code camps, getting them into math camps, chess camps. They can learn to think logically and just move forward. But it's a great country and great time to be alive.
Absolutely. Thank you, George, for coming, for joining. It was amazing. I really appreciate everything you said today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.